Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 718 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day, is Wednesday, August 20th, 2025, and it is a rainy day here at the Beaver Lodge. And yes, that is excitement in my voice for rain, because oh my word, we needed it up until last night when it started. Well, yesterday evening when it started, we have not even gotten 40 millimeters of rain here at the Beaver Lodge in all of July and August so far. It's been extremely dry. I actually went to look it up the other day because I was wondering, and what I was suspecting was right happened. The rain has been passing north of us, has been hitting Ottawa and has been hitting Toronto, although Ottawa also had a dry August, but had a wetter July than we did. So it's just been bypassing us to the north and the south. So we finally got some. Um, it happened yesterday as I was getting ready to go play some tennis. So I didn't get to play my tennis match, but you know, I'm okay with that this time. I'm okay with that this time. Also, it did help that I got to go and play yesterday morning with the gentlemen with whom I play, the ones who are a little older and can't run around as much, which again suited me quite fine this time around. But I like playing with them because first of all, good conversation. I learn a lot from them, and also. Um, it gives me chances to practice other things like placement and precision and all that kind of stuff. And so, my net game as well, because my net game is not very good. Particularly, the reason for that is because my feet seem to be stuck to the baseline. I still haven't mastered moving in. So, I never get to practice any net play except for when I'm playing doubles with this group here. So, yeah, so I also got to play, so it didn't feel so bad, and in that sense. But yes, rain, very grateful. Please, earth, drink, and let the rain keep coming. It started around, I think, 6 o'clock yesterday evening. And I don't know if there had been some intermittent stops somewhere in the way, along the way, or whether or not it's just been raining constant. I know in the middle of the night it was raining a little harder. It was raining much harder because I heard it. It woke me up a little bit, and but yeah, we got rain. It's a good thing. Oh boy, and hope a lot of it keeps traveling east and helps our friends out there because they need some rain too. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and cubs, how is your mental health today? Mine is doing very, very, very well. I have to say. I might talk about it a little later in the show if there's time, but something happened yesterday. As you know, kids and cubs, if you've been following the show for a while, there has been um, situations with neighbors. Let's just say generally that way, and one of them resolved themselves absolutely beautifully yesterday. And we had hoped that we would get to this part, and we had made decisions consciously along the way to try to get to this point. A lot of them very, very, very subtle strategies that would involve playing a very, very, very long game. So, not going for the quick payoff or the immediate result. And every now and then, making when a natural opening happened, making a little subtle move or uh, very deliberate gesture that was not bolder in your face or anything like that to try and nudge things gently along. And we kind of got to that in a very unexpected way. I came back from playing tennis yesterday, and one of our neighbors was outside, and we just struck up a conversation, and everything basically we went at least from a feeling that there was a situation to we've got friends now. We've got friends. So and it didn't involve anybody having to move out. So um it was just so nice. I immediately came in and then wrote my beaver sweetie. Says, "You are going to be proud of me," because I had to bring them along to like trying to do resolve it this way. But yes, total, complete, utter resolution, uh, totally peacefully, cordially, warm friendship. Um, a gift. So I am doing really well, really, really, really well today. I have a little bit of weight off my shoulders, and so yeah, I am in a very good mood, and I hope that you are too, kids and cubs. I'm also very well rested because of the rain. I didn't go play the tennis match and fell asleep with my clothes on, even my shoes on. And so probably I'm gonna guess somewhere around 7 last evening, and slept pretty much all the way through till 5 o'clock this morning. So yeah, uh, got a good night's sleep. I was exhausted though. Doing the by-election show took a lot out of me, and whew. So yeah, I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Let's just put it that way. And I hope that you are doing well too, kids and cubs. So let's see who we have here joining us if we're looking through the magic monitor here. Wow, you guys have been talking today. We have Kit Mohan, who's the first in today. Hello. And hello to family. We have Kit Saucy with us saying good morning. Kit Elaine joining us. Kit Hyper T007. Kit Grace is with us. Kit Toronto Dan is with us as well. Hello, all you lovely, wonderful people. It's so nice to see you, particularly this morning when I have some good news to share, and I'm really, really at my happiest. Hello, Kit Jillian. Lovely to see you too in the chat. And let's see, who else do we have here? Kit Linda M as well. Yes, saying that Bonnie Critchley was on our good friend Laura Babcock's show, the O Show, yesterday. So, kids and cubs, if you have the opportunity, please do go check that out. We are always very supportive of everything our good friend Laura does. And kids and cubs, on Thursday, I will be recording with her to appear on the O Show as well. So watch for it. You never know where your beaver is going to pop up. So there you go. We have Mr. Grizzly here in the chat saying, "Morning, folks. Working away from the office today. Nice to see you, my brother. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if you're still watching or if you're working, but thinking potentially a pubcast on Saturday if you're available. It is Pride Weekend in Ottawa, so I've been thinking about going down for it. So just putting it out there, but I'll write you just in case you're hard at work already. All right. Let's see who else do we have here. Kit Uncovers here, bringing us the news. Thank you so much, and lovely to see you. Who else do we have? Kit Wishful's with us this morning. Hey, nice to see you. Good morning. And let's keep going, keep going. Kit Frank. Hey, Kit Bucky. Hello. Oh, yeah, the gang's all here this morning. It feels like a Friday. Kit Sharon is with us. Good morning, lovely. How are you? Sharon is been reading the comments. If ever I get caught in a dark back alley somewhere with something dangerous, I want her on my right flank with a baseball bat. Just saying. Kit Taffy G in the chat. Good morning to you. Who else there? My God. Wow. Lots of people. Yeah, okay. I think I got everyone. Okay. Woohoo. Yes. Okay, Kits and Cubs. Lots going on, and like I said, normally we do Canada stuff, and we do, focus on that. But every now and then, there's something that goes on in the world, and you got to pay attention to it a little bit. So it's been a bit of that kind of show today, and there might be some Canada stuff. Try to throw in a couple of Canadian angles where we can in there, and if we have some time, a little more Canadian stuff. Uh, um, I should have, and I haven't for some reason. I don't know why. I do know why because I slept all evening long. Did not go out and check Pierre's acceptance speech. Saw a little bit of a statement though, written there, and yeah, doesn't seem like things are going to change. I heard little snippets of it, talking about him wanting to be the humble servant, and uh, uh, almost pulled an ab muscle from laughing because servant and humble. You girl, really, you girl, no. It's like we're not the last thing we are going to buy from you is humble, right? I think what was it, was it Blanchette that said or something like that, that he hoped that the house was full of mirrors so that Pierre could see himself talk or something like that. And servant, you got booted out of Carlton because you weren't a servant. Like these are just words we do not associate with you. It's like, and this is a trick you might have been able to pull off if you had been in politics for 2, 3 years, and got off to a rough start and said, you know what, okay, I can change. But you've been around for 20. This is your 8th term, dude. It's like humble servant. We know you. Oh God, this guy. Anyway, but today we are going to talk about the disaster in Alaska and some of the stuff, the fallout since. Um, Again, on our show, uh, sometimes we don't rush in to give the hot take. This time we couldn't anyway because we had a pre-record for the Monday, and then by-election, so bigger news. So this time it kind of naturally happened that we weren't going to talk about it earlier, but it was nice to have a couple of days and see some fallout and see what transpired afterwards. Because on the Friday, uh, when everything ended, the through line is that really it was a disaster in Alaska, and and that while that still might still be the case, um, developments since have shown that there is, as Mark Carney would say, what happened Friday catalyzed other things that happened afterwards. So we'll try to take a look at that. I'm going to start with the caveat here because, as you know, kids and cubs, I do like to put my cards on the table here. This file, not the file on which I'm the most expert, okay, but I will absolutely do my best and I try to research as much as I can. Also, just with travel and all that kind of stuff, I was not following the developments in real time like I usually follow certain stories. When I go and visit my family, when I check out, I check out. So I kept trying to catch up after the fact on certain things. So there might be certain things that I miss or that are incomplete. Um, I completely own that, but I will give you the best information that I have with regard to that. And hopefully, so, as we always say, we often say on the show, take the best, leave the rest, and don't listen just to us. Go find out other information, and go read stuff on your own to supplement what you get here. But you know, you can always trust us to make a valiant effort to try to present the best information in the best way possible without too much flamboyant or um, you know rage baiting spin. So with that, let's get into it. All of course, this meeting, this summit in Alaska, even though it was very hastily arranged, um, there's a lot that goes behind it, right? Because we're talking about strategic positioning here, and you got different parties. You have Ukraine, you have Europe, whose interests are similar, but also different by the fact that the bombs are falling in Ukraine and not in Europe at the moment, which is a very significant difference. And then you have the United States, and then you have Russia. So you've got sort of four major players, and then I'm sure like behind that, there's China and Iran who have been helping Russia, and you've got India that's been buying oil from Russia. South Africa's been buying oil from Russia as well. So there could be some secondary implications. So you've got other players that are somewhat involved, but like the four corners of this square, if you want to put it this way, is Europe, Ukraine, United States, and Russia at this moment. So each of them have their goals, they have their interests, and this has been going on for a significant amount of time. Russia had been hoping, or I should say, Putin had been hoping. I shouldn't really just say Russia. I should just say Putin in this case, because Putin is Russia for all intents and purposes by now, with the length of time he's been there. Um, like I said, he has his goals, and these are goals from which he has not wavered, not even a little bit, for even 1 second since all of this has started. And where we are now um, is a lot a consequence of him having just been a stone wall who will not budge. We often get the illusion of wanting to budge, or the words that would indicate that he might be willing to, but ultimately it never happens. And that's what has gotten Donald Trump allegedly, seemingly frustrated. Again, I always use allegedly and seemingly because when it comes to Donald Trump, we never actually know where he stands, and we never actually know what his motivations are, because he always speaks in that sort of deliberately vague way, right? We don't have a deal yet, but it could be a deal. It was really good, but this stuff was really bad. It might be good, it might be great, right? He always says everything and its opposite, and back and forth, and leaves things vague and open, yes and no, and switches answers all the time. There was a whole question on whether or not the United States would be willing to put U.S. troops um, involved in some way with regard to maintaining some type of security guarantees. And at first he seemed to be open to it, and then it wasn't, and now it seems like the door's closed, and um, it changes. So you never know where he stands. And like I said, this is extremely deliberate. So with regard to his motivations, we don't actually know, like, whether or not Trump actually really wants peace, or just really wants to help Putin achieve Putin's goals, and is trying to find some underhanded way to do it that has a fig leaf of possible deniability, right? We just don't know. Just like on trade, for the longest time, we couldn't tell whether or not Trump really wanted a deal, or whether he was serious. Okay, is it fentanyl or is it not? And then we, took some action, and then we realized, well, it's clearly not about fentanyl, even though he says it is. And does he want a deal? And now we're getting the sense, well, no, he actually doesn't really want one. He just wants to, you know, have a punching bag that's convenient. So it's we don't know. We can only fill in the blanks with regard to his motivations. So all of this, what he's doing, has to be viewed again according to that sort of central question uh, that I stated when we talked about it before the summit or on the day that the summit was to start, uh, was that um, does Trump really, 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 really want that Nobel and is willing to take action against Putin in some way or some way or form, willing to put the screws to him in order to get it? Or is there something else going on? Because and Trump is just looking to help Putin, but doesn't want to take the heat, doesn't want to say it outright. So, you know, or again with Trump, because he sings every note on the scale like Mariah Carey, maybe he wants both. He is a greedy fucker. So, you know, maybe he wants to help Putin and get that Nobel Peace Prize. That too is a possibility because that guy's mind is a mess. We don't know. So, and that's unsatisfying because, it's much easier to say, well, yeah, this is what he wants and this is the type of person he is. And go, but in this case, like we know what type of person he is, but we know that ego is a big thing. We know that he loves money. We know that he loves attention and flattery and, being viewed and talked about as like the bestestest, the greatestest, and being thanked all the time and stuff like that. But and deferred to. We know those buttons, but what does he actually want really specifically? Well, we don't know. Same thing with the trade deal. It's like, what do you want specifically? We don't know. Because if we assume the bleakest, right, he wants to decimate us and then annex us. And basically, this is a hostile takeover in business terms, you know, and in best terms. Um, he knows that Canada's a punching bag that can't really punch back. So whenever he needs to distract, he can just take out the remote control, click, punch Canada, change the channel, and then move on. Create an alternative narrative, and that's how we are uh, useful to him in that way. And well, if we have to have some pain or collateral damage or that type of stuff, well, he doesn't care because it doesn't hurt him, right? So that's a price, that's a sacrifice he's willing to make. We are a sacrifice he's willing to make in order to get a one immediate distraction if things get hot, and that's probably the best case scenario. But we don't know. We don't know really. So we always have to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. But we don't actually know. So here in this situation, um, there's stuff that's been happening beforehand that leads up to this. In recent months, Trump has pressed for a ceasefire, and this is something that Ukraine and its allies have supported, and they've said that it's a prerequisite for any types of peace talks. But the Kremlin position going into this has always been that it's not interested in just a temporary ceasefire. It's that it wants a full-fledged, long-term peace agreement. Now, again, on the surface, you would think, well, gee, that's wonderful. But there's a strategic consideration behind this, right? The terms to reach a long term peace agreement are much more complex, and there's a whole lot more of them. It's easier to agree to just stop shooting at each other than to make agree, okay, here's peace. Those are discussions that can take a very, very, very long time. And if there's no ceasefire until there is a peace agreement, well, then that allows the shooting and the killing and the bombing and whatnot to continue so long as there is not a peace agreement. And if we look at other parts of the world, let's say Israel and lots of places in the Middle East, um, peace agreements have been very hard to come by because there always seems to be a reason for which one side just can't get there, and it's always the other side's fault somehow, right? There's always a reason for which Putin just can't seem to agree to get into peace with Ukraine because Ukraine just did just one more just that provocation that Putin just can't get past. A meeting that he says he'll come to, but then decides he won't because there's this new thing now that just happened, right? So if you have no intention to get to peace and your primary objective is to basically assume an entire nation into yours. And well, it took you more it's you kind of painfully found out that it's going to take you more than 3 weeks. But damn it, you're determined to do it and you don't care how much it costs and you don't care how long it takes and you don't care who else you have to hurt or else you have to do it and to get it done. Um what better strategy than keep on saying you want peace, but just never being able to find a way to get there without ever getting anybody talking seriously about a ceasefire so that you can keep on doing what you do until you reach that primary objective from which you have never deviated once since this whole thing started. So, um, Putin saying he doesn't want a ceasefire, but wants a full fledged peace deal. Uh, in my personal opinion, based on what I've observed to date, is bullshit. He doesn't want one. He wants a permission structure to not have to stop bombing so he can keep it on until he does reach his primary objective, which is to assume all of Ukraine. That, or make sure that once again Ukraine is led by a Kremlin friendly government, thus assuming Ukraine by kinetic force unnecessary. One or the other. Putin will be fine with that. And you kind of got an impression of that when, the pictures have been seen and it's been commented, but Russia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sergei Lavrov, showing up to the meeting with the shirt that had the letters CCCP on them. And for those of you who are Canadian of a certain vintage, who perhaps watched a lot of hockey back in the day, CCCP are the Cyrillic symbols for USSR. And, well, um, everybody kind of suspects, and based on what Putin has said in the past, right, the greatest tragedy of the last however many years was the fact that the USSR broke up. And gee, wouldn't it be nice if all of those uh, SSRs could be rejoined again? Which, of course, sends a chill down Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia's spine. Azerbaijan and Armenia are probably not that happy about it either. Ukraine's like, oh, hell no. Right? So, eh, let's show up at a peace talk meeting with a t shirt on that says USSR on it because we're serious about peace. Yeah. So, given that this is kind of Putin's uh, or I don't want to say origin story, but I can't think of a better term at a, a primal motivation, right? A core fundamental belief of his, because that the USSR having been broken up is a complete and total tragedy. One of the worst things that have ever happened. Thus, the implication, wouldn't it be great if we could fix that, can bring them all back together so that we can regain our glory and our power and our influence that we had then. And thus, if that's a primary and a primal motivation, it's going to take a lot to disabuse them of the notion that Russia is something that Ukraine is something that Russia is going to be able to assume or absorb, bring back into the fold. Particularly since the Ukrainians are not particularly crazy about the idea. Neither are the Estonians, the Lithuanians, and Latvians, for that matter. So, yeah. Putin's visit to Alaska was his first to the United States in 10 years and his first to a Western country since invading Ukraine in 2022 and plunging the US Russia relations to the lowest point since the Cold War. Very damaging sanctions followed, along with efforts to shun Russia on the global stage. And the International Criminal Court in 2023 issued an arrest warrant for Putin on accusations of war crimes, casting a shadow on his foreign trips and contacts with other world leaders. And you would say, well, how did he get to meet with Trump in the United States, in Alaska, of all places? A territory that, the United States purchased from Russia many, many years ago for several $1 million. Well, that's because the United States is not a signatory to the treaty that created the International Criminal Court. So the warrant doesn't apply in the United States. Therefore, Putin is definitely free to meet there and not worry about arrest. And, well, let's be honest, given how much, how would I say? Given how much Trump likes to consider himself above the law, even if the United States had signed it and was bound by its terms, what are the odds that Trump would say, well, still let him come anyway, and if I'm the president, I get to decide whether or not we enforce this, and so we are not. And that would be the end of it. So, yeah. This is all very messy. That's the thing with this guy. Like I said, we don't know. But in this case, this is not an issue for the United States. It has not signed the treaty, so therefore it's not under any obligation to do so, and that's why that could happen. All right, what else do I have here? So yeah, going into the meeting on Friday, I had certain expectations, or, well, we look at things before they happen. We sort of give our take on what we think what will happen, or what will transpire, and then we come back and then we look at it and see how right or wrong we were. And we try not to go exaggerate too much, try to go off big flights and fancy, and we try to keep things um, you know close to reason. But yes, when before the meeting happened, I had stated on our Facebook page, where we generally have more content that's written. It's important to remember that Donald Trump is going into this meeting in Anchorage desperate for a win, and that Putin is going into it looking for a way to appease or distract Trump long enough to maintain his primary objective of seizing all of Ukraine, which we've been talking about here. It's also important to remember that mere weeks ago, when IQ-47 moved to subs close to Russia, Russia laughed and cautioned Citolini to pump his brakes, lest it release compromat videos it claims to have of him, perhaps some of them putting him and certain of his proclivities on display. Perhaps, maybe, who knows? According to media, IQ-47 is prior to the meeting, was already reducing the program. The amount of time he'll be on the ground was shortened, and any mention of a press conference, a joint one that was previously promoted, had disappeared. There eventually was indeed a press conference and a joint one, but it was an interesting kind of a press conference that lasted about 13 minutes, at which the press was not allowed to ask any questions. A press conference at which Vladimir Putin spoke first on American soil. That got the attention of a couple of people. Just saying. Uh, and there was a lunch that had been scheduled that was canceled. That did not happen. United States had gone into this thinking that was a possibility that talks would last for up to 5 or 6 hours. Talks lasted about 2 or 3, and no lunch, and a press conference at which Putin spoke first, and nobody got to ask questions. That's kind of what we were left with, and then everybody was left to run with their interpretation based on that. And then we got a whole bunch of stories, but those are the specific elements without any editorializing them. There were certain expectations, things that were said, and things didn't kind of pan out. And even from this point, right, there will be a joint press conference. Oh, we're not talking about the joint press conference anymore. Oh, yeah, there is one, but now there's no. So things were constantly shifting. So what do those shifts and changes mean that the talks were terrible? Were they just particularly efficient? Were they right? We're not in the room. We can't tell, but we can only go on speculation. And it seemed that the overall impression, or the hot take after it, was that it was a total disaster. Um, a lot of people saying that the handshake after the meeting wasn't as warm and cordial as the manner in which Putin was greeted when he arrived. And yes, that's of course, but then again, other people could say, well, after X number of hours, you're a little more tired. So, that exuberance is kind of gone. And then, of course, other people, the interpretation says something bad really must have happened to that because, wow, did that get a little much colder based on the reception, which is also a possibility. But we don't know, right? We don't know because we're not in the room. But leading up to the meeting, it was very clear that Trump was systematically trying to lower expectations, stating things like there's a 25% chance that this meeting will be terrible, right? So rather than, the whole bold prediction, I can resolve this war in one day before I even take office. And that, this is going to be a listening exercise. So don't count on getting too many results out of it, when very specifically he seemed to say that he wanted a ceasefire in place by a certain period of time, or else there would be very severe consequences. Now he was just going for a listening exercise. So there was a systematic reduction of expectations, lower of expectations. The other thing, Putin had a certain number of business people in tow with him coming to the meeting. And when we're talking about distracting and trying to get Trump off his goal, well, talking business is something that Trump likes to do. So there was indications here that part of Russia's mission was to spend as little time as possible during this meeting talking about ceasefire or peace in Ukraine, and maybe more talking about reestablishing U.S.-Russia bilateral relations in the business sense. Okay. So Putin's goal here is also to attempt to avoid secondary sanctions. Like, for example, when Trump raised tariffs on India from 25% to 50% because India buys Russian oil, in an attempt to try to discourage them from buying Russian oil. Because, well, there's other nations that do business with Russia on which secondary sanctions, special ones, could be applied. And Russia definitely wants to try to avoid that because Russia needs to finance that war. And Russia is indeed heading towards a recession. So, um, financial flows in this case do matter in particular here to Putin. Um, and perhaps wanting to distract Trump by offering Trump some kind of deal in some other realm, either a deal that would benefit the United States in some way that Trump could point to and declare as a win, or a deal that could benefit Trump personally somehow. Putin's not beyond that. Yes. So, but not sure why you needed a delegation of business people behind you to discuss peace, stopping killing people. But Putin brought them. Uh, there also was the consideration for those who were looking at things from the darker side that Putin in that meeting may have taken advantage of it to maybe um, make clear, more clear, the type of compromise that he had in order to perhaps keep the president a little more in line. There were some reports afterwards that a lot of the White House staff seemed to be shaken and had ashen expressions on their face after this, almost like they were spooked during the meeting, which could lead one to assume that at some point in the meeting, again, if that is a correct interpretation of the looks on people's faces, because nobody put a mic to their face and say, "You look shook up. What happened in there? Did someone spook you?" And then, of course, one would have to assume that they would get an honest answer to that, which, right. Um, there are certain journalist questions that sometimes I find amazing. I saw one on the tarmac where Putin was coming in and said like this, are you going to stop killing people or something? Or like, it's like, uh, who in their right mind? Oh, so, no, sorry. Sorry. Now you're going to stop people. Did you underestimate Ukraine? I was like, in what galaxy would you expect Putin to stop? You know what? Right on the red carpet, shake hands. Yeah. You know what? I did underestimate Ukraine. It's like Putin's never gonna admit to that. Yeah, you got me. I underestimated it. Yeah, I really walked into that. I screwed up big time, man. It's like that's not a question. Nobody's gonna do that. So, so um uh, like I said, it's a mess. It's a mess. All right. So yeah, there could have been that type. And then again, it could have just been that this was a meeting that was so hastily organized, and after it was all over and done, and everybody's just tired and exhausted, and it's just like a moment. We don't know. We weren't in the room. That's that's what I mean. It's this spin thing. What do you know? And there's a lot of people that have run with this because, but we don't actually know if that actually is true or just an impression. Nobody's confirmed it or denied it. It's just a sense of how the meeting went based on how people are acting. But there's not a tangible element in the public domain that we can hook our hat onto to say, that's what happened. And that's why people have these expressions on their faces. Our impression was going into it that Trump was about to get played hard. And the only question really was how hard, because in our estimation, um, Trump has essentially paid himself into a corner. He couldn't emerge from the meeting appearing weak, though we all know Putin and Russian state television are consistently laughing and constantly laughing at Trump now. And you could all know, you could all predict that no matter what happened in that room, Trump would emerge from the press conference declaring it a success And he did. So lots of gums flapping, lots of people moving wind, lots of people flapping their arms, making a big spectacle. But the odds of IQ 47 unleashing severe consequences on Putin, as far as we estimated, were slim to none until such time as the risk to Trump personally from the face down, ass up energy puts on display with regard to Putin is greater than that of the compromat that Putin may hold on him. Now, I say may because I don't know if he has any, but Donald Trump is the kind of person who does a lot of things that would allow a lot of people to accumulate a lot of compromat on him. So, and well, Putin's a former KGB agent, so I'm sure he's not adverse to using compromat if he had it. And since it would be hard to acquire, um, he may have compromat on him. I'm using may because I have to here. Uh, if you ask me personally, I think for sure he has some, but I can't say for sure he has some because I don't know. But I really, 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 really think it. So we're going in there. Um, yeah. Get Tabby G. Oh, I wonder if Melania's. Yes, apparently Melania wrote a letter as well, talking about the children or something like that. And anyway, well, listen, there's a lot of. I don't have words. I don't have words because this is my mind just does not work this way. It's a painful exercise for me to try to put myself in those shoes and think like people like that could possibly think. It's completely unnatural to me and it's painful. The exercise is painful uh, because I always have to think about what's the worst thing you can think of, or what's the dumbest move you can think of. Because and how do I put that on steroids top times 10 because of greed and narcissism and all of that kind of stuff? Or what's the um, most selfish move and dumbest move combined that could be done? And uh, I'm not that creative. I'm very creative, but I'm not that creative. I'm pretty good on human nature and what people, past behavior has done would lead me to believe what future behavior would be in certain contexts, even if contexts are shifting. But uh, on the part of just how devious and duplicitous can someone be, and what are all the places their minds can go in to get there? I'm not that creative because my mind just doesn't work that way. Oh my god. Ay, 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 ay. Okay. So I'm seeing here the kids in the chat here. Trump spent enough time in Russia. I'm sure they have something on him. Tavi G going, so many of us have adapted to that mindset. Isn't that terrifying? Yes, it is. I agree with you 100%. It's terrifying. It's like I'm almost afraid to step over that line because I'm afraid my, like, when they say, like, don't make that face, your face will be stuck in that position. I'm afraid if I let my mind go there, it won't come back. Oh my word. Uh, so the summit did take place about a week after a deadline that Trump put in place to give the put in place for the Kremlin to stop the war or face additional sanctions, casting. Sorry, I that was terrible. I moved. I tried to scroll down, and I did it with a little too much vigor, and made the scroll down go down way further than I wanted. So yes, I didn't. The summit took place a week after the deadline that Trump gave to the Kremlin to stop the war or face additional sanctions on its exports of oil in the form of secondary countries buying it. And as I mentioned before, Trump had already imposed those tariffs on India, and if applied to others, Russian revenues, quote, would probably be impacted very badly and very quickly, according to Chris Westfer, who's the CEO of Macro Advisory Limited Consulting. Um, Kids and Cubs, also just want to tell you that a lot of the data points that I have here, I'm using because I like to tell you where I got to source my stuff, was from the Associated Press. So I tried to go to places that give just facts without editorializing in order to bring you this so that I can then put my own sort of take on it for you here. So very hastily arranged, and a lot of people were saying afterwards the fact that there might not have been a lot from the press conference coming out of it may have been a direct result of that, because these types of meetings usually are pre-prepared many months in advance with teams going beforehand doing things like, for example, um, Prime Minister Mark Carney's meeting with the President of Mexico that's going to be happening last month was preceded by Dominic LeBlanc and Anita Anand going down for those conversations with President Sheinbaum and members, high level officials from her team. And then I'm sure there were lots of phone calls that happened before that to even get to that point, and these things get built up. And then we have the big summit of the two leaders where, often the communique of it is pre-written and with some blank spaces left for what transpires during the meeting to add, and to add some additional color and texture, if there are things that have happened in um, the context of the summit that need to be highlighted. Um, but the general broad outlines of what is going to be said in that press conference that follows is usually determined ahead of time. There was no time for this in this case. So that would lead, this is very unorthodox, but for the little bit of time that there was to plan this in that sense, um, all the things that were needed for the summit to be good television were indeed planned. I know we've all seen the images of it, but in Alaska, Putin arrived and walked on a red carpet, shook hands, exchanged smiles with Donald Trump. Trump warmly greeted Putin, even clapping for him. It's almost I was watching like Trump like clapping, and it's like I'm thinking of that film in that moment in The Nutty Professor where all the family's around the table and the mother's going, Hercules, Hercules. And it's just like, oh God, dude, don't do that. You're talking about someone that has arrest warrants out from him by the ICC. Like, don't clap. Don't roll out the red carpet. Just the big plane with Russia in the Cyrillic letters landing on the tarmac on U.S. soil. Just that visual is something that Putin will be able to make propaganda for a while. There were some images of Trump running, like he runs, walking down the red carpet in a sort of like zigzag way. He couldn't actually walk a straight line, which caused people to ask a lot of questions. What's wrong? I have no idea what that was about. Couldn't tell you. But yeah, uh, that was bitchy. I'm sorry. But yeah, that was a little weird. Uh, and so we had the red carpet, we had the planes. There were U.S. On the tarmac, and then there were U.S. warplanes that flew overhead, and all of that was caught on camera. Um, Again, weird. And then both of them getting into the beast, which is the name for the vehicle that the president of the United States gets into in his motorcade. Both of them getting into the vehicle together, which is must have sent the uh, national security and homeland security people uh, into a tailspin and having fits. I don't know. I really hope they swept that car over and over and over and over again after Putin got out of there, and that's with the Putin having flown his car to the United States. So Trump was supposed to leave in his, and Putin was supposed to leave in his, and they both got into the American one, which creates an opportunity for a one-on-one conversation completely and totally in private. Oh my God, hello, Shades of Helsinki, one more time, in which nobody knows what happened because national security loves that. It's the man that doesn't follow protocol and respect rules. So yeah, that got a lot of tongues wagging. And Donald Trump did end the summit, praising the relationship and calling Russia a big power, number 2 in the world. I'll be admitting that, yeah, they didn't reach a deal at that press conference. The assessment of the meeting was that it, quote, produced nothing for Mr. Trump and gave Mr. Putin most of what he was looking for, according to Laurie Bristow, a former British ambassador to Russia. Putin has, quote, broken out of international isolation, returning to the world stage as one of 2 global leaders, and, quote, wasn't in the least challenged by Trump, who ignored the arrest warrant for Putin from the ICC. Of course, like I said, doesn't apply in the United States. Putin came to Alaska summit with the principal goal of stalling any pressure on Russia to end the war, said Neil Melvin, director of international security at the London-based Royal United Services Institute. Quote, he will consider the summit outcome as mission accomplished. So, said, though in the days before the summit in Alaska, Trump had threatened unspecified, very severe consequences. That's a quote. If Putin did not agree to stop the war, there was no deal on a ceasefire, and Putin avoided the sanctions. Whether those sanctions will materialize later remains unclear. Asked about that in a post-summit interview with Fox News Channel, Trump said, quote, he doesn't need, quote, to think about that right now, and suggested that he might revisit the idea, quote, in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something again. See, I don't need to think about that right now. Maybe in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, maybe there will be sanctions, maybe there won't be sanctions. Don't have to think about it now, but I'm thinking about it maybe in 3 weeks. I don't know. Was that a yes or no? I think that was a possible maybe. Right? It means nothing when he talks. Ay, ay, ay. So, like typical Trump, moving the goalposts, particularly on time and objectives, so he never actually has to deliver and never has to be accused of not delivering. Very similar to what he does with trade, as we've seen here, the deal on Canada. It might be this date, it might be this date. These tariffs might come, they might not come. There might be an exception for this. Oh, there's another tariff potentially, but I don't know. Oh, the tariffs will be very low at first if they come, but if they don't come, then they'll be very high. Right? It's the same playbook for everything. You can see how it manifests in other negotiations, another way he goes about there. Yes. But yes, um, nothing tangible, nothing concrete. Everything's gelatinous. Right? Quote, unless Mr. Putin is absolutely convinced that he cannot win militarily, the fighting is not going to stop. That's the big takeaway from the Anchorage summit, again, according to Laurie Bristow, the former British ambassador to Russia, who we cited earlier. So then they had press conference, as we mentioned, and going to take a little look at it here because there's some interesting things that happened. So going to start here with, as I mentioned, and you're going to see Trump doesn't even say anything all in the press conference. He doesn't greet anyone. He doesn't welcome people there. He doesn't even say, "Hey, Vlad, you want to talk first?" He just like is on the stage and then just puts his hand out and then just allows Putin to start speaking first, which is very, very weird. Hopefully that that circle will stop.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, our negotiations have been held in a constructive atmosphere of mutual respect. We had very thorough negotiations that were quite useful. I would like to thank once again my American counterpart for the proposal to travel out here to Alaska. It only makes sense that we've met here because our countries, though separated by the oceans, are close neighbors. So when we've met, when I came out of the plane and I've said, "Good afternoon, dear neighbor. Very good to see you. In good health and to see you alive."
Okay, I'm gonna stop right here because first of all, do you see how when Vladimir Putin is talking that Donald Trump is like looking at the audience and going, "Hey, you," like he's at like a rock concert or something, like, "Hey." And this thing here, Vladimir Putin, it's good to it's nice to see you healthy and alive. I'm gonna just let that sink in. Coming from Vladimir Putin. How else did you expect to see him, if not alive, Vlad? That's weird. That's very, very, very weird. It's like when I think I showed it to you once. It was a friend of mine, Jesse, who did a skit like this where he takes a Glinda from The Wizard of Oz and he's talking to Dorothy. He says, "Are you a good witch or a bad witch?" Says, "Well, I'm not a witch. I'm not a witch at all. Witches are ugly." Hey, wait a minute. It's like, why did you ask me if I was a witch? Bad witches are ugly. Why'd you ask me if I was a bad witch? Can't you not tell that I'm not ugly? Why are you throwing shade? So this is like, it's nice to see you alive. I don't know. If I was Donald Trump, I'd be like, wait a minute. What? What do you mean nice to see me alive? What was the other option? So yeah, yes, indeed. Translation could be an issue as well. True. That is true. Get saucy. But what? So then Putin goes into talking as normally one would in these type of situations. A little bit of some common history that they have in together, and how it is that there were warm relations before and all that type of stuff. Like you always go to a meeting and they'll go to another country and say and then this builds on our tradition of like often people. The best example I can use of that is like we're often talking to the Americans, and then we often talking about how the plane landed in Gander, right? As a symbol to the great cooperation and friendship between our countries that has existed for. So there's a little bit of that, and then Putin starts to get into some stuff here, and I want you to get the construction of what's going to happen here. So Putin is going to start mentioning stuff related to history of how all of this stuff in Ukraine transpired, and this is where the propaganda framing starts, right? When he's talking about when he talks about root causes, which is code for Ukraine just cannot exist because it was ours and always ours. Self-declares Russia's concerns to be legitimate, as if this is a truth that the whole world has already agreed was the case. Then he'll move to framing Ukraine as the one who would torpedo an agreement. That agreement that they've come to, or whatever agreement they've come to, that they're not telling us what's in it in this press conference, but assuring us that they have. So, but framing like, gee, I sure hope that Ukraine doesn't torpedo this agreement, thus trying to, again, pre-frame Ukraine as being the bad guy, the aggressor, the one that's the obstacle to any ceasefire at every, but it's been Putin that has, it's Putin who's said he's going to show up to meetings and not show up at meetings. It's Putin that's been promising things and then not delivering, as Trump said, Vlad, it's on the phone, it's very nice, but it turns out to all be bullshit, right? So, but again, what, as we say for all these things, when Putin is speaking here, what he is saying is for domestic consumption back home, right? This is the narrative that he wants to push. So, and he's hoping that we will buy it too, of course, because if we buy it, that helps him. But this is for domestic consumption. But you will see he'll move to frame Ukraine as the one who would torpedo. And then after doing those sort of parts, then you'll see that he switches, and probably the real reason he was really there, money and business. There's also a moment where he mentions very briefly Arctic cooperation, and that bit should send chills down the spine of Canada and every other circumpolar nation, because that makes us wonder if some of the discussions in that room had to do with the fact that both of these imperialist presidents might be making some type of agreement to carve up the Arctic between them two, rather than leaving it to the consensus of all the nations involved. So, yeah, anytime Putin's talking about Arctic cooperation, that should ring some alarm bells. And then, when that part is done, we'll get to the flattery section of the program, because, again, Putin knows Trump. And so all of those things he puts in there, and then ends with the flattery section, because he leaves that to the end, because, well, Trump reacts to the last thing he has heard, and therefore Trump can feed off the flattery section before he starts talking. So let's take a look at this, and you'll see that all these points of construction are in this message.
Spoken multiple times. We spoke frankly on the phone, and Special Envoy of the President, Mr. Witkoff, traveled out to Russia several times. Our advisors and heads of foreign ministries kept in touch all the time, and you know fully well that one of the central issues was the situation around Ukraine. We see the strive of the administration and President Trump personally to help facilitate the resolution of the Ukrainian conflict. And his strive to get to the crux of the matter, to understand this history, is precious. As I've said, the situation in Ukraine has to do with fundamental threats to our security. Moreover, we've always considered the Ukrainian nation, and I've said it multiple times, a brotherly nation, however strange it may sound in these conditions. We have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots the primary causes of that conflict, and we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress. Incidentally, when the new administration came to power, bilateral trade started to grow. It's still very symbolic. Still, we have a growth of 20%. As I've said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint work. It is clear that the U.S. and Russian investment and business cooperation has tremendous potential. Russia and the U.S. can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high-tech, and in space exploration. We see that Arctic cooperation is also very possible, and our international context, for example, between the Far East of Russia and the West Coast of the U.S. Overall, it's very important for our countries to turn the page, to go back to cooperation. It is symbolic that not far away from here, at the border between Russia and the U.S., there is a so-called international date line. I think you can step over, literally, from yesterday into tomorrow, and I hope that we'll succeed in that. In political sphere, I would like to thank President Trump for our joint work, for the well-wishing and trustworthy tone of our conversation. It's important that both sides are result-oriented, and we see that the President of the U.S. has a very clear idea of what he would like to achieve. He sincerely cares about prosperity of his nation. Still, he understands that Russia has its own national interests. I expect that today's agreements will be the starting point, not only for the solution of the Ukrainian issue, but also will help us bring back business-like and pragmatic relations between Russia and the U.S. And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump is saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, business-like and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right. So there, you saw the stages, right? Sort of looking at the history, and we have concerns, and they're legitimate. We need to get to the root causes that Ukraine exists. So we have to eliminate all root causes. Again, there are 2 or 3 little words to put in there, but they have so much significance, and they should send a chill down everybody's spine here. Again, accusing Ukraine of being the one that's most likely to torpedo this agreement, that nobody knows what it was, talking about all the business opportunities that there could be between the United States and Russia, a little bit about Arctic cooperation, and then in the flattery section, again, reminding everyone, like he said, if you noticed when you got to the flattery section, and I would like to thank Donald Trump, then Donald Trump's body language turned like, oh, he said, I want to thank him. So he turned around and then looked at Putin and then made the whole point about, I tried to tell Joe Biden. Like this, and Biden wouldn't listen. So the war happened. This war wouldn't have happened if Trump was there. And that's something that Trump's been saying all the time. This war would have never happened. Never happened if I was president at that time. A sleepy Joe Biden made it happen. Obama gave them permission to take Crimea. Right? So entering that flattering, saying something out loud that Trump has always maintained. And then hands it off to Trump. So take it from here, buddy boy. So let's see what buddy boy does with this one. And again, and this is where, again, listen, no praise for Putin. But Putin's been at this for a while, and you can see, like, he's got specific points, got a specific message, and even though it's entirely bullshit, it is constructed and it is one statement that even though it is incoherent in as far as it doesn't connect to any observable reality that any of us can see, it is coherent in the sense that he has an objective, he has a point, and everything in the structure of his statement is consistent with that point and in reaching that objective. And then we get Trump.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That was
He wants so hard to relate, and he just can't let that Russia thing go. Ugh, eye roll. This is not the time for this. But you can see he's a mess. There's no through line. There's no through line. He's just yammering.
This meeting could.
Yeah. Notice at the end, as Trump's looking and trying to close that with finality, nice to see you again, Putin in English, of course. Maybe a meeting next time in Moscow. Little KGB psychological warfare right at the end after you've done all of that. Just throw a little something in there that sounds nice, but it's really, really, really nasty. At the last minute to destabilize someone just as things are finishing. Maybe give the press something to talk about other than the fact that this agreement that he needs to call the other European leaders and Zelensky to talk about, we don't know anything about it. They didn't even attempt to address it. It's almost like packing an unpinned grenade in someone's lunchbox just before you hand it to them and send them off for the day. Just, oh, God. Blah. So, as, right, I stated when I looked what was going in there, there was going to be, maybe some, potential to talk about business, and Putin spent, out of the 5 minutes that he had where he was going through all that plan thing, he dedicated a certain amount of time, probably at least a full minute, to business considerations that had absolutely nothing to do with Ukraine whatsoever. And then, as I stated, that Trump could not emerge from the meeting appearing weak, and that he would declare the meeting as a success. Well, he did. After the meeting, he wrote, "A great and very successful day in Alaska. The meeting with President Vladimir Putin of Russia went very well, as did..." Actually, I should do that in not the news anchor voice, propaganda news anchor voice, but in Trump's voice itself. "A great and very successful day in Alaska. The meeting with President Vladimir Putin of Russia went very well, as did a late-night phone call with President Zelensky of Ukraine and various European leaders, including the highly respected Secretary General of NATO." In a statement after the summit, Putin claimed that the two leaders had hammered out an, quote, understanding on Ukraine and warned Europe not to, quote, torpedo the nascent progress. But Trump said, "There's no deal until there's a deal." In his Fox interview, Trump insisted the onus going forward might be on Zelensky to get it done, but said there would be also some involvement from European nations. Zelensky was then at that point that we found out that Zelensky was going to meet Trump at the White House on Monday, and both had raised the possibility of a trilateral summit with Putin, But Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov said this wasn't discussed in Alaska. The Kremlin had long maintained that Putin would only meet Zelensky in the final stages of peace talks. But Trump announced, quote, President Zelensky will be coming to D.C., the Oval Office, on Monday afternoon. If it all works out, we will then schedule a meeting ahead with President Putin. Potentially millions of people's lives will be saved. So Tatiana Stanoyava of the Carnegie Russia and Eurasia Center states that Trump now appears to be shifting responsibility towards Kyivs in Europe while still keeping a role for himself. Fiona Hill, a senior advisor on Russia to Trump during his first administration, told the Associated Press that he has met his match because, quote, Putin is a much bigger bully. Trump wants to be the negotiator, quote, of a, quote, big real estate deal between Russia and Ukraine, she said. But in his mind, he can, quote, apply real pressure only to one side, Kyiv. Hill says she expects Trump to tell Zelensky that, quote, you're really going to have to make a deal with Putin because Trump wants the conflict off his plate and is not prepared to put pressure on the Russian president to do it. Now, while we know very little about what actually happened during the meeting of the two world leaders that took about 3 hours, other than the lunch had been canceled, this is where media reported that experts were suggesting that a comment from Putin's side is what would have left Trump's team feeling allegedly shocked and ashen-faced, as the press was describing it in the room watching them. Describing the mood of aides such as Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, after the meeting, NBC News Chief White House correspondent Pele Alexander said that their, quote, eyes were wide and ashen. And I'm going to have a little bit of a clip here for you with that. Now, one of the things that was different also about this summit, based on different from what was expected, is that it was really expected to be a one-on-one type thing. And as we noted, the Marco Rubio was there, and Witkoff was there, and Putin had Lavrov and other people there. So in that sense, that was a little different than people were expecting at the beginning. It seemed that it was just going to be the two leaders, and then nobody. There was not much of a talk between having members of each team there as well, and that was noted in the press as being something that was different. I can't speak to that personally. I don't find it odd that these types of meetings would have the aides there, and hopefully you do want the aides there because you don't want the no witnesses. But that might have been different. I would assume. See, I can't remember if that Helsinki meeting that they had only had Trump and Putin and the interpreters and nobody else. And maybe that's why they were expecting the same thing this time around, or whether or not there were other delegations from members of the team. But when Trump had that meeting with Zelensky, you'll remember on February 22nd, 2025, the one where it was televised, and it was basically an ambush of President Zelensky. Trump didn't come to that one alone, right? When Zelensky was in that room alone. So the fact that it wasn't a Trump-Putin meeting alone did get some, was noted indeed in the press as something that was a change from what was expected at the beginning. I hadn't come across statements stating from the beginning that it was only going to be them two to the exclusion of anybody else. That doesn't mean they're not there because I didn't see them, but I didn't see that. But some people did have that impression clearly because they made a point of writing about it. With regard to the ashen part here, this is a clip from MSNBC where the host, Antonio Hilton, is specifically asking about this. And I believe that this is a asking the question, and it's someone named McFall who is answering this, and I'm trying to figure out who McFall is. Okay, former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Michael McFall, who's an Obama appointee about Trump's son. So yeah, he's the one that's going to be giving the impression here. So hopefully this there is not a commercial. Turning this. Hopefully the clip will start. And the clip will not start. Okay, in that case, since the clip will not start, that's not a problem because fortunately the article has a bit of a transcript of the moment. So, MSNBC host Antonia Hilton had suggested that President Donald Trump aides, particularly Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, may have been frightened by what they had witnessed during the president's meeting with Russia President Vladimir Putin. On Saturday night's episode of MSNBC's The Weekend Primetime, Hilton spoke to former U.S. Ambassador to Russia Michael McFaul, an Obama appointee, about Trump's summit with Putin in Anchorage on Friday. Quote, and she asked, a lot of the press corps that was there, they reported in the minutes and hours after the presser that they saw members of the administration like Carolyn Leavitt look ashen, almost frightened after what they had seen behind closed doors. What did that indicate to you? Hilton asked McFaul. McFaul responded, quote, we should all be glad that we did not go to Alaska because I was in Helsinki with you, and I was in Geneva when President Biden met. They traveled a long way for nothing in return, those journalists. But that suggests to me that this was a bigger disaster than they're letting on. To your point, they're trying to spin it, although they're not even trying to spin it, and that's a really interesting thing. When I worked at the White House and we would have meetings like this, I was the SAO, the senior administration official, that would call up journalists, that would call up the New York Times to say, this is what was discussed, to push it this way. They're not even attempting to do that because they know they don't have anything to work with. Yikes. Boy. Okay. Prior to the summit, Carolyn Leavitt was on the defensive, stating on Fox and Friends that of the president's critics, quote, I think it's pathetic that some of the chatter that we see from these so-called experts who have zero accomplishments on their own resumes to point to, yes, because experts become experts because they have zero accomplishments, but moving on, President Trump knows what he's doing. Okay, sure. So, yes, wondering about that Ashton stuff. This is, like I said, the impression here from a former senior administration official is that there was nothing to work with, so they couldn't spin at all. That's a way of looking at it. There was also an article in the Daily Mail that had a little more detail about that kind of image of ashen faces in the room based on people who were in the room itself. It was NBC News chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander who had first come out and said that their eyes were wide and ashen. And he said, quote, what struck me was the looks on the faces of a lot of the American delegation, he said. Leavitt appeared to be stressed out and anxious, he noted, while Witkoff came into the room, then left quickly, then came back in. Those were some of the sort of images that will stick with me as we leave here. So that's where the origin of that came here. Oh, and then I found something that actually did have the clip in this article too. I should have just gone to this one first in that case. But since I already read it, I won't play it again for you. So yeah, again, that's an impression. As I mentioned before, a lot of people ran with that and made a lot of stories with that, and in terms of claiming that this had to be a disaster given the looks on their faces, and they saw something that spooked them. But again, as I stated at the beginning of the show, we weren't in the room, and we just really do not know. So and we will never know, right? Unless one of them like resigns, quietly resigns in like 2 or 3 weeks to not make it look like they're resigning as a result of something that happened in the room that they don't want to get stuck with, and say that they're doing it for another reason, and then at some point go all tell all. But other than that, yeah, not really. There's nothing. That's something we will probably never know. So moving on from there, the Republican president and the Ukrainian president Volodymyr Zelensky and other European leaders held hours of talks at the White House on Monday, aimed at bringing an end to Russia's war against Ukraine. So we got to the press conference, all that happened. There was a whole weekend of commentary and analysis. People knew that there would be. Trump said that he would call Zelensky and he would call the European leaders. And then we found out that Zelensky would be coming to the White House on Monday. And then we found out that European leaders from 7 nations, I believe, would be coming to the White House along with him. And then the agendas of the day were put out, and it was a one-on-one meeting between Trump and Zelensky, and then later on the European leaders came in, and that meeting had everybody there. And it seems that from what I can guess, there was a moment from that was also televised, and you could see a lot of the European leaders making their case with regard to ceasefires and security agreements and stuff of the like. After the meeting, Trump posted that the next steps would be a bilateral meeting between Putin and Zelensky, one-on-one, followed by a trilateral meeting that would include himself. But there were 3 sticking points overall that people are discussing at this point. Land concessions is the first one. Security guarantees is the second one. And a ceasefire is the third one. In that press conference at the end said, we agreed on a lot of things, but not on all things. The most important one, maybe, you didn't get a ceasefire. That's the thing. You went in explicitly saying that you wanted, or else you would be very unhappy and there would be very severe consequences. And the press conference ended without a ceasefire and without very severe consequences, which is what leading everybody to say it was a disaster. That Putin got everything he wanted, that Trump got played, and that maybe in that meeting that Trump showed Putin something. Putin showed Trump something that spooked everyone, because Trump went from demanding a ceasefire to not really talking about it, and went from saying there would be very severe consequences if he didn't have anyone because he was so unhappy, to not really talking about consequences. So people thought, something must have happened in that meeting where Trump got put in his place and got told to shut up about such things. I wonder what that thing might be. That's how that thinking, comes along. But if we look at these things, land concessions, Trump went into all of this making statements like, it was probably going to have to involve some type of land swap at some type of point in order to get to peace, which is essentially rewarding Putin for having invaded. And let's say, I think there are 4 territories that in which Russia is currently present, but they don't control them all. These ones, even though they haven't won them over, we're just going to hand over, and you guys get this. That's something that is just not on for Ukraine. Ukraine is not going to have it. Something that's not particularly on for Europe as well. Right? They don't want to create that precedent whatsoever, that you can go into some place, get into war, and then at one point it becomes a war of attrition. Then some superpower comes in and says, well, you conquered 40% of this, so you get 100% of it so that we can get peace. Europe is not down with that at all. So land concessions are there. And then he went from saying that there will have to be land swaps to then saying as a basis for the trilateral meeting between Putin and Zelensky. That these are things that Ukraine would have to decide for itself with regards to land swaps. That still doesn't mean, so at least it creates the illusion or impression for now that Trump will not be going to Putin saying, well, I'm deciding that you get to keep Donetsk and this part. And that's how we're just going to carve this out and get to the end, and without Ukraine having a say on that whatsoever. Now, whether or not Trump, even though Trump's saying that that's a decision that would be left up to Ukraine, whether or not that's a decision that Trump wants to have some type of veto over, either by expressing his displeasure or whether or not he's going to keep pushing behind the scenes to get Zelensky to concede territory. It's your decision. It's your decision. I'm going to keep on pushing you to do it, do it, do it, do it. But it's your decision. But do it, do it, do it. It's your decision. Do it, do it, do it. Whether that's going to be that type of dynamic remains unclear at this moment. With regard to security guarantees, Trump said after his meeting in Alaska last week that Russian President Vladimir Putin was open to the idea of security guarantees for Ukraine. Putin and the Kremlin's position, again, one and the same for all intents and purposes, has been that there is no possible way whatsoever that Ukraine can gain admission into NATO. But Ukraine is going to want some security guarantees, and hopefully some that were better than the ones that they allegedly had for giving up their nuclear capacity that nobody agreed when Russia invaded Crimea in the first place. Those security guarantees did not materialize. I have a feeling that this time it might be a little different, given that they've seen Putin try to invade another nation now, and that Europe doesn't want it. Maybe next time when they sign a security guarantees thing, they'll actually deliver them, because they didn't this time. And that is a portion of the reason for how we did get here. But yes, we are talking about security guarantees, and it seems that Putin agreed at the summit with Donald Trump that its European allies could offer Ukraine a security guarantee resembling NATO's collective defense mandate as part of an eventual deal to end the war. Trump envoy Steve Witkoff, who took part in the talks Friday at the military base in Alaska, said, quote, "It was the first time we have ever heard the Russians agree to that," and called it game-changing. Quote, "We were able to win the following concessions: that the United States could offer Article 5-like protection, which is one of the real reasons why Ukraine wants to be in NATO." Again, Article 5-like protection from the United States to Ukraine, considering from Trump, considering his word means nothing. And when would come time to actually deliver on those Article 5 protections, nothing stops Putin from placing a call to Trump and saying, you might not want to do that, buddy, because other stuff might happen. And then Trump changing his mind. I wouldn't rely on an Article 5-like protection from the United States were I Ukraine. From other European nations, potentially. So if other European nations are allowed to do that, and Putin doesn't torch whatever plans or torpedo whatever plans as a result of that, there could be. But again, that relies on that new coalition of the winning, quote unquote, being willing when the time comes, and not willing, and them too not bending because they get a phone calls from Putin saying, "Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe we'll start with you first, then we'll get back to Ukraine." Right? All these threats. However, Witkoff offered few details on how such an arrangement would work, but it appeared to be a major shift for Putin and could serve as a workaround to his deep-seated objection to Ukraine's potential NATO membership, a step that Kyiv has long sought. And when that happened, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney really seemed to walk through that door and kick it open, because they both published letters at that point talking about that, or making statements, I should say. Mark Carney published his statement here that I will put up for you, kids and cubs. The leadership of President Trump and the United States is creating the opportunity to end Russia's illegal war in Ukraine. Robust and credible security guarantees are essential to any just and lasting peace. I welcome the openness of the United States to providing security guarantees as part of the coalition of the willing's efforts. Canada is closely coordinating with President Zelensky and our partners in the coalition of the willing to intensify our steadfast support for Ukraine and our shared commitment to its peace and security. So Prime Minister Mark Carney here saying, hey, security guarantees, robust and credible. Let's go out immediately in the press and say, yeah, we like this idea of credible security guarantees. This is a good thing. And let's do that to increase a little bit of the public pressure in order for that to materialize. And then there was a statement by Keir Starmer that I mentioned before as well, and we'll show that to you, indicating a similar thought. President Trump's efforts have brought us closer than ever before to ending Russia's illegal war in Ukraine. His leadership in pursuit of an end to the killing should be commended. While progress has been made, the next step must be further talks involving President Zelensky. The path to peace in Ukraine cannot be decided without him. This morning, I spoke to President Zelensky, President Trump, and other European partners, and we all stand ready to support this next phase. I welcome the openness of the United States alongside Europe to provide robust security guarantees to Ukraine as part of any deal. This is important progress and will be crucial in deterring Putin from coming back for more. In the meantime, until he stops his barbaric assault, we will keep tightening the screws on his war machine and even more sanctions, which have already had a punishing impact on the Russian economy and its people. Our unwavering support for Ukraine will continue as long as it takes. So then again here, I welcome the openness of the United States alongside Europe to provide robust security guarantees to Ukraine as part of any deal, putting that in the statement, increasing public pressure for that to indeed take place. With regard to the sanctions, I saw a quote, a comment from Kit Hyper T there, thinking, about to enter recession, the ruble's about like 1 penny. Yeah, indeed. But Putin has been doing some things with the gold reserves and other things, playing shell games, moving stuff around to create the illusion that the Russian economy is stronger than it is. But at some point, those are the amount of shells he'll be able to move are running out. And the obvious recession, what's going to come, or the inevitable, will eventually hit. And economists, I think when we talked about it last time on the show, economists were saying that it was about 1 year out from those maneuvers from being exhausted. And we passed that 1 year point, I believe, a couple of months ago. So there should be, in the relative near future, more and more cracks in the Russian economy that have been hidden and masked, starting to appear and become more visible because there's no way to hide them anymore. And a recession will probably be one of those that's coming. There was also a statement from the Prime Minister. Two statements. Was there two or one here? Readouts. There was one on the 11th when the Prime Minister spoke to President Zelensky, and that was earlier on before the summit, stating, because August 11th, stating, today the Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke with President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky. Prime Minister Carney and President Zelensky agreed on the categorical imperative of ending Russia's barbaric war of aggression and establishing a just and lasting peace and security for Ukraine. The Prime Minister and the President welcomed the leadership of President Trump and the United States in working towards securing peace in Ukraine in the context of upcoming negotiations. The Prime Minister endorsed the recent statement issued by European leaders on the same. The two leaders underscored that decisions on the future of Ukraine must be made by Ukrainians, that international borders cannot be changed by force, that diplomatic engagement must be reinforced by continued pressure on Russia to end its aggression, and the need for robust, credible security to enable Ukraine to defend its territorial integrity and sovereignty. Prime Minister Carney affirmed Canada's steadfast support for Ukraine. The Prime Minister underscored Canada's robust military and financial aid to Ukraine, including $2 billion in new military support and the disbursement of a $2.3 billion loan in funding to help rebuild Ukraine's infrastructure and public systems. Last week, Canada, the European Union, and the United Kingdom announced they intend to lower the price cap for Russian crude oil, weakening Russia's ability to fund its illegal war. As co-chairs of the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children, Canada and Ukraine renew their call for Russia to immediately and unconditionally return Ukrainian children who have been unlawfully deported or forcibly transferred from Ukraine. Prime Minister Carney confirmed that Canada will continue to cooperate closely with the Coalition of the Willing, President Trump and the United States of America, and with President Zelensky and the people of Ukraine for peace and security in Ukraine and Europe. So that was a statement on the 11th. And then I believe there was a further statement just 15 hours ago based on more recent events. So this is from August 19th. Today, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, participated in a virtual meeting of the Coalition of the Willing alongside the President of the Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. The coalition discussed yesterday's meeting between President Trump, European leaders, the NATO Secretary General, and President Zelensky. Leaders welcomed the openness of the United States to providing security guarantees to support long-term peace and security for Ukraine and Europe. This approach is consistent with the principles of no decisions about Ukraine being taken without Ukraine and no decisions about Europe being taken without Europe. The Prime Minister affirmed Canada's steadfast commitment to supporting these efforts, reinforced by further diplomatic engagement, continued military and economic pressure on Russia to end its aggression, and close coordination with President Zelensky on the development of robust and credible security guarantees, as well as further military and financial support for Ukraine. As co-chair of the international, and then there's the statement again with regard to the children being returned. So as co-chair of the International Coalition of the Return of Ukrainian Children, Canada will intensify its work with Ukraine, European partners, and the United States to secure the immediate and unconditional return of Ukrainian children. Canada also welcomes the new appeal to President Putin by the First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump, to consider the plight of children in ending this war. So again, a little flattery for Trump there. And again, I know if you're rolling your eyes about it, like this, the incessant flattery and having to blow smoke up Trump's ass and sunshine up his butt left, right, and center every time whenever addressing him. Yeah, it's annoying. It's tiring. It's exhausting. But it seems that that's the way it needs to be done in order to grease the skids so that things go as smoothly as possible. It just seems there's no way around it. You can't get the guy to listen unless you do that. And that's what opens the door. So the pro forma constant thanking and flattering and praising and elevating the contribution as being a sign of tremendous leadership and whatnot is the basic price of admission to be heard. I would like it to stop, but then, you know, if that's how you get into the door to get some results, do you play the game? Right? I don't know what the answer is, but yes, whether that is bending the knee and bowing the head, or whether or not it's just a strategic move that one uses to get in the door in order to then make their play, because you won't get a chance to make your play if you don't do that. Right? I can make a case for both. But as someone who's not in the room and not participating in the negotiations, as someone who's just reading it, it's like every time I hear this, oh my God, yes, okay, first, we're here to do something, but first let's kiss the ass. Okay, now to what we're here for is annoying and eye-roll inducing and exhausting and exasperating and all of it. So When it comes to security guarantees, the European leaders said that they want U.S. support for robust security guarantees, including the deployment of a reassurance force as Trump pursues his campaign to promise ending the grinding war. But while answering questions from journalists, we always, like as I mentioned at the beginning, we've got the jello again. Trump did not rule out sending U.S. troops to participate in a European-led effort to defend Ukraine as part of a security guarantee sought by Zelensky at first. But then he appeared to rule it out later in a post when he said he would be coordinating with European leaders rather than providing resources. Then President Trump later on Tuesday offered his assurances that U.S. troops would not be sent to help to defend Ukraine against Russia after seemingly having left open the possibility the day before. But when asked by Fox News channels, Fox and Friends, on Tuesday what assurances he could provide going forward and beyond his term that American troops would not be part of defending Ukraine's border, Trump said, "Well, you have my assurance and I'm president," which ultimately and usually means nothing. So, will there, won't there? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We'll see. Basically, the Trump answer. With regard to the ceasefire, which was the third of the three sticking points I mentioned earlier, far from the summit venue and its backdrop saying, "Pursuing peace," Russia continued to bombard Ukraine and make incremental advances. After Alaska, Trump appeared to echo the Kremlin's position on a ceasefire, posting on social media that after he spoke to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders, quote, "It was determined by all that the best way to end the horrific war between Russia and Ukraine is to go directly to a peace agreement, which would end the war, and not a mere ceasefire agreement, which oftentimes do not hold up." And then, of course, when I'm thinking about security guarantees and peace agreements and stuff like that don't hold up, again, remembering, as I mentioned before, Ukraine surrendering its nuclear weapons under the guise of a peace agreement, that did not hold up. So I'm not sure why a peace agreement would hold up more or less than a ceasefire agreement would, but according to Trump, there seems to be something in his mind that says that that's the case. Or again, it was just bowing to Putin, who does not want a ceasefire agreement because he just wants to keep on being able to pummel Ukraine as much as possible, and creating the conditions, making the end goal the whole peace enchilada rather than just a mere ceasefire, delays that and allows Putin to continue with his primary mission, which is to hopefully, for him, his prime mission, which is to obliterate Ukraine before there comes time for need for a peace deal to be firmed up so they can then assume it. By Saturday morning, Moscow time, Trump appeared to have abandoned the idea of a ceasefire as a step forward to peace, something he and Ukraine had pushed for months in favor of pursuing a full-fledged peace agreement to the end war, echoing a long-held Kremlin position. Quote, "The severe consequences he threatened against Moscow for continuing hostilities were nowhere in sight. On Ukraine's battlefields, Russian troops slowly glided on with time on their side, which is the objective on the part of Russia, of course, as we mentioned before. But a ceasefire, even if Putin gets that instead of this, it still would have suited Putin just fine because, as he's proven up until now, when it comes, there's a ceasefire is merely an opportunity to regroup and rearm for a further push. So yeah, not the best here. With regard to the flat, there was a very, very good take by Andrew Chang, I think it was, with one of his about that's, if I remember correctly. Yeah, there it is. I have it. About what it might be about in reality. So let's take a little look at that, and I think we will have enough for today on this topic and seeing where that goes. But I liked this one because, again, if you're at home wondering, like, what the hell, man? Stop kissing his butt and stop delicately applying talcum powder to it and just kick it. Like I said, while it might make us feel good to see that happen, it doesn't necessarily, with this particular person, may not be the road ahead that allows one to get to the destination that they would like to reach. So a little bit more into it from Andrew Chang, who always does really, really good work on with the About That portion segments that he creates.
When the President of the United States gives you the floor, it's normal to say thank you. It's slightly less normal to say thank you 8 times.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Many thanks. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Volodymyr Zelensky came armed with gratitude for his second attempt of 2025 at a civil Oval Office meeting, after the first attempt went so horribly wrong.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country.
But there are actually a few ways in which Zelensky appears to have learned from his last visit, and I'll show you how. So when Zelensky and Trump last met in the Oval Office, this was back in February, there was one key moment that really shifted the conversation from substance to symbolism.
Have you said thank you once this entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
And this theme from the Trump administration of, we've wasted all sorts of money on you.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
And why can't you just say thank you?
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this, I tell you.
Just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards.
And then, look, it gets to this weird point where Trump actually starts impersonating Zelensky.
Then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I wanted this. Look.
Like I said, it got weird.
He was being shouted at by both Trump and Vance to kind of disabuse him, if you will, of his position that he came in with. So major shock effect, reality check.
So you have this version of Zelensky that now, in August, appears to increasingly understand that the purpose of these Oval Office displays isn't necessarily to discuss policy. Sometimes what Trump seems to want is deference.
Thanks so much. So first of all, we have possibility now to buy weapon from the United States. We're thankful for this program and this opportunity.
He's definitely changed his tone, his demeanor. His playbook was certainly out of the diplomacy by flattery.
And this note of gratitude, where the act of expressing it is a key part of the relationship. This is a lesson it seems all major powers with a stake in this fight have learned.
Thank you, Mr. President, for hosting us.
I want to thank you also that you mentioned the thousands of Ukrainian children that have been abducted.
Thank you, Mr. President, for organizing this meeting and for your commitment.
A conflict which has gone on for 3 and a bit years, and so far nobody's been able to bring it to this point, so I thank you for that.
Well, I really want to thank you for your leadership, what you are doing for Volodymyr, but of course also all the European colleagues.
It's one thing to appeal to Trump's ego. It's another to appeal to a sense of decorum.
President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good.
I said the one that attacked you last time. See, now I remember.
This moment would have seemed strange to anyone who didn't recall what this very same reporter asked Zelensky the last time he was in the Oval Office.
Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a suit? You're the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if you do own a suit?
So you don't need me to tell you, this is not a serious journalistic question that one asks of a world leader at war. It's a question intended to embarrass.
This was by no means a conversation. This was a ritualized humiliation.
And you see the vice president, J.D. Vance, laughing, and the one we hear. I've heard that enough times to know that's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, another member of Trump's cabinet who is just off camera. But all to say, back in February, Zelensky took the bait.
Just want to see if you do own a suit?
Yeah, you have problems.
A lot of Americans have problems with you not
Really?
respecting.
I don't
the
have
dignity of
such.
this office.
I will wear a costume after this war will finish.
And you can see in this moment, Trump is taking that all in. And that word, costume, hard to tell. Is that a shot at what the reporter's wearing that Trump might interpret as a shot at him too? I mean, they're wearing the same thing, right? So fast forward months later to today, and Zelensky has clearly put some thought into avoiding a repeat of the last time. Black jacket, black collared shirt, no tie, but well dressed enough apparently for Trump to notice.
The best I have. You say it.
I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
And in the same suit. You see, I changed, you are not.
Zelensky kind of quips back and says, but you're still in the same suit. Kind of just a little bit of a joke there. I think he just came in with a different attitude and was a little bit more receptive and also knew how to work that room.
One of the more important lessons world leaders have come to learn about how best to navigate a Trump news conference is simply to let Trump do most of the talking. Because if you try to speak out of turn,
Your country is in big trouble. Wait a minute. No, you've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
So this time around, Zelensky has mirrored other world leaders who survived the gauntlet, the Macrons, the Starmers, the Carneys of the world, and really only spoke when spoken to. Of the nearly 30-minute meeting in front of all those reporters and cameras, Zelensky spoke for just a few minutes and never really for much more than 30 seconds or a minute at a time.
Trump likes to talk. Trump likes to give these sort of rambling monologues.
You know, I think the good news, we make the best military equipment in the world by far. You mentioned the Patriots. How good are they?
Yeah, systems.
We have systems, they're literally 100% foolproof.
Donald Trump is somebody who is extraordinarily susceptible to flattery. He loves it when people are nice to him. He loves it when people say good things about him. I think a good strategy in a one-on-one meeting is probably to just let him get it out of his system, let him talk, and then make your case when you have the opportunity.
And so Zelensky lived to fight another day, which is enough, because these meetings are really more for signaling and sound bites than substance. I guess that's always been true, but maybe more so in the era of Trump. There is this added dimension about laying bare a power dynamic, a hierarchy where the US is the senior partner. Play within that framework, and sure, doesn't necessarily mean you win all the marbles, but you can certainly avoid losing them.
So there you go. His work is always very spot on. Goes into depth. So you could see here the reason for the thanks, the body language, what Zelensky was wearing, when to speak and when not to speak. It's always the Trump show, and there's only room for one star in Trump's sky, which is Trump. So it's like that George Michael song, Faith, right? Today is just the way you got to play the game, right? Maybe it's just that's just the way that the game is played nowadays, and it doesn't mean more than that. And that's the basic price of admission. But yes, it is. For those of us who are at home, it is, as I mentioned, just eye roll inducing, and it's like, oh God, can we stop this, please? But it seems no. It seems that if you want to be heard and you want to have an opportunity to make your point, this is what you got to do now. Well, that's where things seem to stand at the moment, and then we'll see what develops. But yes, it's a mess. It's a mess, but there does seem to be at least some things that are moving. Again, whether all of this is just in vain because some person at one point is going to put up a roadblock and just pull the rug out from under everyone and none of this applies anymore, whether or not this actually is a path forward. Europe taking its money and buying military equipment from the United States so that the United States doesn't have to look to the American people like it is supplying this for free. And he can point to money coming in for helping Ukraine. And then European countries, and maybe with Canada in that, being part of a group of nations that would provide securities, a security guarantee, maybe even with the United States somehow in there, but probably not relying on the United States, totally honestly, to provide security guarantees of their own in an Article 5-like way, could be some type of elegant way out again where, United States can say that, that's Europe's war and Europe's taking care of that now, right? That could be potentially a path forward in the sense that it's not NATO accession, so Putin can then say, well, if it's not a full NATO thing, maybe I can work on all of these nations one-on-one and pressure them individually to abandon that security agreement thing later on. He might prefer that as a task and, okay, as an interim measure. Because his plan would be to dismantle that right away, and then it would be up for the European leaders with leaders that come and go and change and whatnot, remaining strong on that until such time as Putin is pushed back, if they really do want to prevent what Putin has done in Ukraine to spread to other nations. So maybe there's something real here that can be worked with and advanced. And like I said, the optimist in me would like to believe that. But then on the other side of the ledger, the realist in me is like, yeah, but how long does this agreement and state, even if we get there, how long does that stand before someone else comes in and tries to disrupt and ruin and destroy that? And with a bunch of players on there, if I'm looking at Russia and United States under Trump, and possibly with Chairman Xi in the background, maybe bolstering Russia, everything screams fat chance. So, which makes it hard to be an optimist. So, and anything in that range is possible, because everything is fluid, and as I mentioned, gelatinous, and nobody seems to want to make firm commitments. And even if they make firm commitments, all the people that would be making these firm commitments have a word that is so unreliable that any commitment is never firm. But you do see, as I mentioned also, Zelensky's new way of approaching things, since that meeting, not only the suit and learning to speak when spoken to, and and even injecting a little humor, which he can do because his background is as a comedian in there. All that kind of stuff could be good, but as mentioned, Zelensky, his broader strategy, as I can see it, is that he has noticed that if Trump is getting upset with Putin because Putin says one thing but does not deliver, then maybe if Zelensky proves himself over a significant period of time as the person who shows up and will do the flattery and will deliver, then maybe Trump one day will go, you know what? I was wrong about you. I like you. I like you more than I like him. I'm going to help you. And it might just be, you know what? It's crazy enough that it just might work. If the flattery and the obsequiousness, I think is the word that I'm looking for, I hope that's the right word, is what is needed. Yep, obsequious is what's needed to get Trump to come on your side and like you, because he wants to be liked and he wants to tell everybody how much everybody likes him because everybody loves Trump. If that's what is needed, maybe that is the strategy. Maybe it's just willing to show Trump that you're going to be a more reliable source of flattery and positive media clips than the other guy. We've tried everything else. At least, Zelensky has a clear strategy, as far as I can see, that he's pursuing. And there's some semblance that it may be working, given that Trump has never really expressed any frustration with Putin. And recently he has. Again, whether or not this is a show or not, we don't know, because we don't know how Trump's head really works. But that could be it. And as we've mentioned, and as Andrew Chang mentioned, a lot of other leaders have been seen doing that. We've seen Mark Carney be particularly very good at playing that particular type of game. It's no surprise that Mark Carney would be good at playing that type of game, because as a central banker, he's had to be in the room with a lot of these egos all at once, where he was not the main decider, but somebody who had to get the attention and make the case. So formulating a message for the audience who's in the room at the time, and each individual player, is a skill that he has definitely acquired somewhere along the way, and therefore he knows how to play that game particularly well. And maybe that is why, still after all this time, while Trump and Ambassador Fuckface keep on saying how Canadians are mean and nasty, has never gone to the point of saying how Carney himself is mean and nasty. Sometimes just when you enter another culture, figuring how things work in that world and then trying to navigate the best way forward in that new world is all you can do. And it looks like some people are perhaps learning that lesson and trying to apply it, and hoping that it will yield results. Okay, kids and cubs, that is all the time that we have today. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us, because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really love it when you do. It really helps us a lot. Now, if you would like us to help you, kids and cubs, hey, we can do that, because, sometimes you want to keep abreast of what's going on in the world, what's going on here in Canada specifically, and you want to do democracy and you want to be engaged, but you have a busy schedule and you don't have time to sit down here with the DAMFAM and watch us. Well, hey, we're portable, so take us with you. Thanks to the generous contribution of the Ray Girl, who sponsors our pod page and makes our audio casts available. So if you scan that QR code, that will bring you there. Or if you go to podpage.com/thetruenortheagerbeaver with a hyphen between each one of those words and click on subscribe. When you do that, when we have something fresh off the audio cast bandwidth, zip right into your favorite podcast feed platform, and you don't even have to go looking for us. We knock on your door. Hey, we're here. Can you come out and play? And yeah, we make it easy. So just pop us in your ears and take us with you. We're portable for your convenience. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us, we definitely would appreciate your help. And one of the ways you can do that is by surfing on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page and maybe smashing with our buttons. And if you're watching right now, as Kate Elaine likes to remind us, if you smash now, you don't have to remember to do it before you leave. So go to our YouTube page and find our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. Give them a little click, give them a little lick, give them a little flick. It makes us happy when you do, and it helps us immensely with the algorithm. And it's nice to see our subscriber base continuing to grow. So thank you, everyone, for coming to our page and finding something that you like on it and that you like enough to be able to click subscribe as well. We very much appreciate that. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in another way, we do incur some costs to bring this show to you, and we would like to humbly request your help in covering them if you are able to, and if you think that this show has a value and resonates with you, and it's something that you think you should support, we would be happy to receive an enthusiastic expression of encouragement in the form of a tip. And now I'm shaking it. shaking it for tips. And you see, as soon as I move out of that small range in the camera, I seem to go blurry. Interesting. It's not you kids. It's me. I got blurry. So somebody, it's almost like, gee, did what the water that I put in this cup create that sudden fuzzy feeling? But kids and cubs, if you would like to help us, a tip would definitely go a long way, and you can make your let's try that again. You can make your contribution to the Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, where every day we work to fight the scourge that is dry beaver. Terrible thing. So if you want to do your bit to keep your favorite beaver moist, a contribution to our tip jar available at our coffee page, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word, or you scan that QR code that just appeared there, and that will take you there. And we are very thankful for your donations and your contributions. And I just want to give a little shout out to Kit Carlos here. Heard my story of woe yesterday, particularly the part where I went to the bathroom and ended up with some one water splash, just one water splash at one very specific location on my shorts that, had I got up and walked out, would be very, 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 very embarrassing. Said, quote, went for a hot chocolate and ended with watermarks on the shorts. See, I wasn't joking when I said we have to apply moderation when keeping the beaver moist. Everything in moderation, including moderation. Sometimes you just got to get wet. So there you go. And I did. That was the weird part. Like, had there been like many splashes, everybody would have turned around. Okay, the sink splash, but there was just one. Just one. It was like, oh man, can't go out walking like that. Oh man. Okay. So yes, all that to say, your tips are very much appreciated, and we thank you. Now, if you want to support the Beaver Lodge, but you want to do it by buying Canadian, because that's what you're doing the patriotic thing, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address, kits and cubs, and you can send us a direct bank-to-bank transfer that way, and that helps us a lot, and it's a win-win-win situation, kits and cubs, because first of all, your transaction's entirely Canadian. Win. You bypass the CE Tech bros who like to take some of their profits and offer it as tribute to the man who claims he wants to win excess, so you deprive him of that. 2, win. And when you do that, because the middleman from the United States doesn't take its cut, we get 100% of your donation. So more of it goes to bringing you this programming that you enjoy. Win. Win, win, win. So if you are able to help, please do. Now, kits and cubs, as we often say on the show, if you're not able to contribute financially, it doesn't matter, because the gifts of your presence and attention are the ones that matter the most to us. And we want to hear from you. And that same email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, is where you can write to us. Let us know what you think about the show, good, bad, or ugly. If ugly, please do be gentle. But we do appreciate constructive criticism and feedback. If you have some ideas for guests for the show, please do. And again, if you have anybody in your circle that has a small home-based business or that type of sort, or a community organization that's has an event and would like to announce it a little more broadly, let them know about us, because we are happy to make a deal. We have price points for that, and many ways that we can have advertising that can fit every single budget. And of course, we like to support community. So if it's for community groups, we can make a deal on price. So kits and cubs, do let us know if there's anybody, or direct them towards us. We would be happy to work to help everybody else with their goals of making their small business be more profitable, or getting more butts in the seats for community events, because a lot of these community events often happen to be events to raise money for charities as well. And we would like to support that and be helpful if we can. All right. Kids and Cubs, because democracy is something that you do. Remember the by-election coming up on August 26th in Spruce Woods. I remember today. I don't even have to go look it up. Manitoba. So if you have the opportunity there to either support a candidate, vote early, or plan your vote, encourage other people to come and vote. That would be a very good thing. And again, if you are in Alberta, we're going to keep talking about this, Kids and Cubs. www.forever-canadian.ca. That's the website you go to support the move by Thomas Lukasik to ensure that Alberta remains part of Canada by provoking a citizen initiative referendum on the question of whether Alberta should remain in Canada, rather than the one that was being sought by other forces about whether or not Alberta should separate from Canada, which is now the question which is now being reviewed by court, despite the objections of Danielle Smith, the Premier, and Mickey Amory, the alleged Minister of Justice, who somehow seemed to be trying to affect a legal decision before it was even decided, trying to affect whether or not the case would even be taken up. Not even just the verdict, just taking up the case. But it seems that the justice system in question basically said, no, there's a legitimate thing here, and we are going to do our work. Thank you very much. So in that time, of course, we have to get about 294,000 signatures to get the question on the ballot, and more than that, again, because we know, like Danielle Smith likes to try to manipulate things. So we need a 294,000 and then a little buffer. So if you are in Alberta and would like to pledge to make a donation to Forever Canadian, or make a donation, pledge to sign the signature, or pledge to sign the signature, pledge to sign the petition, or make some time to go do so, because there are many pop-up events where you can go and line up and get ready to do it. The petition needs to be signed in front of a canvasser. There needs to be a human witness to it. So that's not something that you can do electronically. You have to make your way there, and somebody has to find you and to sign. Or whether or not you'd like to volunteer or even become a canvasser for signatures, go to www.forever-canadian.ca and signal your interest. Let them know where you are, or let them know, or find out where you can find them, and then please go and put your signature there. And this is a time to fight for Canada, and we know that there are many people in Alberta who are more than willing to say that they love Canada and want to remain part of Canada, and will do this. I have no fear that the goal of 294,000 signatures and then some will be reached, but you still got to do the work. And we can't rely on other people showing up and saying, no, I don't have to show up. I know enough people will support this. No, you have to show up, because if everybody says that, then nobody shows up. So you got to show up, and you got to encourage people and bring people with you. Why not? Okay. But let's do the work. This is the time to put the body in the game, and we're counting on you. Okay. Words of wisdom, kids and cubs. My words of wisdom for today, because I actually have some today, is always play the long game. Always play the long game. You never know when it's going to yield the results, like it did for me yesterday, but always play the long game. Don't go for the quick win. All right? And don't give up when you're playing the long game, because there comes times where you think, oh my God, did I make the wrong decision? And we did have that. And turns out, judging by how the way everything unfolded yesterday, we did not. We just needed to let time do its thing, because I guess a secondary wisdom, there are certain things that only time can do, no matter how impatient we are. Right? Sometimes you just got to surrender to time and let it do its work. Okay, kids and cubs, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourselves. And now we get to the audience participation part of the show, where kids and cubs, I ask you, if you please say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I hear you. Oh, you sound so lovely. How can I deny you what you ask? You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors. The Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community. And The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs. Just a little note for you. Yesterday, I talked about all our track and field athletes that had done some amazing competition in Bahamas at the North American Caribbean Track and Field Championships. Team Canada emerged from those championships with 12 medals, 4 of them gold. So when I said they were on fire, it was an entire haul. I don't know if I had listed them, all of them yesterday when I saw that, but I saw an article afterwards stating that, and it was 12 of them. Whew, that's a lot of hardware. So I'm very happy to be able to report on that. All right, kids and cubs, that's all I've got for you today. I'm sending you kisses, amour et bisous, and we'll see you again tomorrow. All right, until then, have a beaverific day. And like magic, I'm gone. Poof.